Welcome back to the White Lies Whodunit series. I'm Nicole Engelbrecht, and this is episode 8. If you're just coming across this and you haven't watched the White Lies series or the last episode yet, I strongly recommend you go do that first. This episode does have major spoilers in it for those who haven't watched yet. If you've been an avid White Lies viewer though, and you've just finished the series along with me and need some closure, watch on. White Lies viewers, we made it. And really, this final episode is not so much a quest for whodunit, but an OMG over all the revelations. 40 Bell chastised himself over not realizing that Morgan was the killer. And to be fair, we didn't see that coming either. But Morgan's suicide, among other evidence, confirms that he was telling the truth, and he was the one who shot Andrew at his request. So there now seems to be little doubt that Morgan is absolutely one of our killers. So for the first time, we can, in all good conscience, give a suspect 5 stars. But there is that matter of this only being one of our killers, because it's official. And we definitely have to. Edie initially seemed intent on looking away and letting Morgan take the rap for both. But that's not our justice warrior, Edie. She would never be able to rest knowing she'd let a killer get away. And we've got some additional information from 40 in this episode that's actually pretty important. The person who assaulted Olivia was left-handed. That ends up taking Daniel off the suspect list for Olivia's murder completely. But the young man's woes aren't quite finished. He thought he'd lost his mom, only to discover she was never his biological mother. I guess his initial reaction was sort of understandable. It's a lot to process, and this young man does seem to be deeply under the manipulation of his sister. Except she's not his sister, really. Not biologically. She's actually his cousin. But they didn't know that when they were getting intimate. But we knew there was something off about those two. The relationship was just too intense. And now that they know they aren't brother and sister, they must be incredibly relieved. Except cousins is still kind of bizarre, isn't it? The whole interaction between him and his sister is just so complex. So let's talk about our second killer. Jamie is an incredible psychopath. She is wholly manipulative and, considering her age, completely terrifying. Because who knows what she'd be capable of in the future. And although she seems to be so obsessed with Daniel, there were moments there where she seemed quite happy to throw him under the bus. The closer Edie got to the truth, the more Jamie continued to bait her by saying she didn't know what Daniel was capable of, and that he was dangerous. All the while, she was the dangerous one. I do have to wonder what would have happened if Andrew hadn't chosen that very day to have Morgan shoot him. Would Jamie have killed them both anyway? Did she just happen to see her chance in that moment and take it? And really, even though we now know Jamie absolutely did kill Olivia, Daniel was a conspirator. He knew all along and lied for Jamie. I think one of my favorite moments in this whole series came in this episode, where 40 set Mackie Hofmeyer up and finally arrested him. Who knows what the repercussions for that are going to be for 40, but it was incredibly satisfying to see him acting and feeling like a police officer again. And of course, to see that smug look wiped straight off dodgy Mackie's face. Sadly, we know the scenario described there around corruption is not as fictional as we might like to think. Corruption really does go very deep in many of our systems, and it was nice to see some justice being delivered, even if it was just for the characters of White Lies. Poor old Roberts is in the clear, and he seemed to finally stand up to his dad. Edie had a mothering moment with him, which was quite sweet, and you could see he needed that. Creepy Werner really does struggle to do a convincing impression of an actual human being, doesn't he? Hopefully, Roberts takes Edie's advice and gets out of his dad's house and Bishopscourt. That phone call from Olivia to Edie was what pulled Edie into the story from the beginning. Remember way back in the first episode, the cops called Olivia's last dialed number? And now we know why. Olivia had discovered that Jamie and Daniel were being intimate, and her world imploded. I wonder how differently the story may have gone if Olivia hadn't phoned Edie, or if Edie had answered and talked Olivia out of confronting the children. In the end, Edie had to make the hardest decision of her life. Having Jamie arrested is undoubtedly going to cause a rift between her and Daniel, but she had to do what she had to do. I'd love to think that there could be a season 2 of White Lies in the works. I don't know about you, but I've become far too attached to these characters to not know what happens in their lives after this. Will Jamie get a hefty sentence, or will she turn on Daniel and claim she was manipulated by him? It's unlikely, given her age, that she'd get much of a prison sentence. In fact, in South Africa, the Child Justice Act really does protect minor offenders in that way. Can you imagine Edie as a mom? Her and Avi do make quite a cool couple. And 40. Will he retract his resignation, or is he really done with being a cop? I still think that PI agency is a great idea. Feel free to use it, White Lies writers. We're just going to have to demand a season 2 here. It cannot end like this. And what a wild ride it's been. In all seriousness, every time I get to participate in helping to promote another South African series, I'm filled with more and more pride on each occasion. South Africa is producing incredibly high-quality television series, and White Lies has just elevated that to a whole new dimension. We have amazing talent in this country, in actors, writers, producers, directors, camera people, the works. And I'm really so proud to see what incredible creations we're putting out into the world. A huge thank you needs to go out to Mnet for selecting and screening this amazing series. We really are starting to get to a point where South African-made content is just as good, if not better, in my opinion, than overseas fare. And as viewers, we can all play our part in making that continue by watching, sharing, and letting platforms know when we enjoy their content and want more. So as we wave our White Lies friends goodbye, hopefully only for now, I'd love it if you would head over to wherever you get social digitally and comment or share a White Lies post from Mnet telling them just how much you love the series. Thank you so much for working alongside me as an armchair detective for the last 8 weeks. I reckon we nailed it. Until next time, keep your eyes open, your instincts keen, and don't get tripped up on any white lies.